Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Atheist Experience. Or am I not supposed to talk yet?
Well,
because we can't hear the music. We have no idea where we're at.
things are...
I'm Jeff D. That's Martin Wagner. You can tell by the names underneath our smiling faces.
Technology is a wonderful thing.
We also, I don't know what's going on.
Oh, well,
so,
let's just...
Well, I don't think we can take calls because we're not going to hear the callers.
Well,
how you doing?
Well, I'm doing well. It's good to
It has been a long time since we...
Been a good... Okay, so we are definitely on.
We have got the word that we're on. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Yeah, it's been ages since Martin and I shared the table up here in front of the camera, which is awesome. Last time would have been when I was co-hosting with you.
Yeah, and that's at least 2003, 4, at least something like that. So
yeah, we've both been co-hosting for a long time. Anyway,
yes.
Matt's out this week, and I couldn't do it next week, so we swapped, and here we are.
Serendipity.
We're going to try to go straight to calls. See how that goes.
We're going to try anyway.
We don't have any.
Yeah.
So we won't do that.
Well, we have them, but they're not identified to us yet.
Right.
Yeah.
And we're not going to take that risk.
That's fine.
Aha! We have Kevin in Japan.
No.
Kevin!
Hi there.
Hi, Kevin. What can we do for you?
Okay. I'm referring back to basically on a call that a guy named Miles made from New York back on March 3rd.
Uh-huh.
He's an atheist and gave you guys some advice about kind of a harsher attitude you might be having, and it reflects back on all atheists. And Matt being a big guy on having the data, I went back and he said, "Get your own show if you want to do this." I'm like, okay. I go back and take a look. First of all, I went back to your 2007 shows, a group of them, and then just got the feel for them. Related that to the shows you have nowadays. Back in 2007, you guys had a much milder attitude. You were much more engaging with your audience, much more sympathetic to their points.
We're sorry that you're dissatisfied.
Yeah.
Okay. You were right. All you have to do is press the drop button.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Thank you very much for your call.
Yes.
We're going to do our show the way we feel like, and if you don't like it, there are a lot of other places you can go.
Yes. It is also a caller-driven show, and sometimes you get callers that are frustrating, and we're human. Sometimes
different hosts have different styles.
Yes,
and you're going to get what you get, so that's life.
We're not perfect. We know this, but
yeah,
the show is what it is.
We do the show that we actually do. Yeah. Let's try. We don't have a name on line 3, but let's just go and see who it is.
Hello, caller.
Hi, line 3. Who am I talking to?
Who, me?
Are you an ex-theist?
Hi.
Did you used to be
Brent?
a theist?
Are you Brett?
Brett.
Brent. Yes, I'm Brent, calling from Costa Mesa.
Hi.
Hi, good to talk to you. What's up?
I am really glad I got through to you guys.
We are too.
Yeah. That's a great way to put it. I've been calling it as a theist for quite some time, and you've always done really well in countering my arguments. Very briefly, I called about 5 or 6 times before, and I'd like to present to you guys a debate that I had with an atheist about 2 weeks ago, and it basically was the straw that broke my back on theism, on believing in God.
Okay.
And I love it because it's not. I feel like you can lower down yourself, for lack of a better word, to the theist level and just humor their beliefs for a second and give them pure facts. So the debate, and I've never tried to rehearse this, so I appreciate your flexibility on me trying to free wing it here. But I have done the research, and the bottom line is, if God does exist, it certainly wouldn't be a good idea to pray to him, because statistically speaking, all you will get is less happy, less healthy, and less wealthy. Now I'd like to talk about facts to support that opinion, and I'm also willing to demonstrate sources.
Okay.
First of all, the poorest, if you just Google it, the poorest state in America is Mississippi. It also has the highest religious rate. So there's clearly a direct correlation to how religious people are and how poor they are. So statistically speaking, if you are religious,
again, statistically speaking, you're more likely to be poor. Now, not only is Mississippi the poorest and the most religious state in America, but there's a direct correlation to all of the states in America with their poverty levels and their higher religious rates.
Right. Well, what's probably actually going on there is not that, of course, praying makes you poor. It's that the poor people are more desperate and make better fodder for religious conversion.
Absolutely.
Then there's
And
there's another factor to consider as well too, because I think that all you have to do is look at the Sistine Chapel to kind of say, well, okay, it's not necessarily follow that if you're religious you're going to be poor. There's a lot of wealth, there's a lot of money in religion. It's huge. The thing is, though, that particularly in America, and I don't want to talk about other countries and other cultures where I'm less informed, but what you tend to have in these southern, more religious states is another factor that is probably related, which is a lower degree of higher education.
That's absolutely right.
And less education means fewer career and financial opportunities down the road in life. And you should never do the whole correlation equals causation thing, because that's fallacious. But you can look at sort of a big picture, and as Jeff said, when you have less education, meaning less economic opportunities, equals more desperation. More people in a more fraught emotional state, looking for guidance, looking for protection and comfort, then religion can move in and provide that.
Now, if I may intrude real quickly, the problem with that is that I found out recently, is that when people answer every question with God, they're closing themselves off to the real answers that are out there. And that actually, there's been multiple studies that have been done that show a direct correlation to IQ scores and religion. And then there's many studies that range from anywhere from 7 to 16 points average lower IQ for people that follow the Christian religion. And I'm not going to use that too much of an example. And my opinion is, this isn't a fact, this is an opinion, is that's because they don't care about the reality of the world. They take the answer and accept it of God and don't look into the truth. And the IQ test doesn't test how much you know, it tests how much you're willing to learn against ideas that don't necessarily agree with yours.
Again, I would be careful about correlating those facts, where the causation is coming from. I don't think that, though I'm not aware of any studies, I could be wrong, but I don't think that it's religion that makes you dumb, that religion that makes you have a low IQ. I think, once again, it's people with low IQ are easier to convert.
I think it's simple as
or more likely to stick with it.
I think it's as simple as this. People that are closed-minded are obviously not going to be open to changing their mind. And when somebody's wrong and they're not willing to change their mind about something, like science is self-correcting, religion is not. And that's the correlation I'm willing to try to draw the line here. Let me backtrack a bit.
Some of that resistance, though, Brett, is also, again, going to be in terms of what religion presents to its believers that makes them closed to other ideas, conflicting ideas. For example, if you were to, you're trying to tell someone, explain evolution to a person, right? You got to give them, if somebody says, why do you agree with evolution? Why do you think that's factual? You got to give them books like, here's all this biology, here's all this paleontology and taxonomy, and you got to send them to these websites and all these academic sources. Ask a Christian the benefit they get out of Christianity, and you get these sound bites, right? And it's all about, God loves me, and He died for me, and it's there's this degree of emotional fulfillment and satisfaction that they've been, inoculated with, that makes you very resistant to just purely intellectual attempts to defeat it, right? Because you're getting to some, you can't argue rationally against something that's filling an emotional need very well. That's difficult. So again, there are many factors to consider, and I don't think it's just, if you believe in God, you're more likely to be stupid. No, it's not really.
Well,
it's more like,
and I'm not claiming that.
Yeah, it's more like you don't have the
see,
tools of critical thinking installed as well.
Right?
Really,
you found data that shows a correlation between low IQs and religiosity. It's not just poor education, but low levels of education in religion? IQ? I think we lost him. All right.
Oh.
Hello?
Oh,
You still there?
You still with us, Brett?
Yeah, sorry, I think I got somehow disconnected temporarily.
Okay.
Anyway,
I was asking,
I might
it's so that you're saying that there's data which shows a correlation between low IQ and religiosity as opposed to lower education and religiosity?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I know I've heard the other thing.
Yeah. If you just do a simple Google search, they started doing studies in the 1920s of IQ scores for people that consider themselves, quote, heavily religious and unquote.
And then did they take those same people and test them again after they'd become atheists to see if they got smarter?
Actually, that's a really good point, and no, they don't. So I love that you have that open-mindedness about the results of those studies.
Yeah.
Well, it just
All right.
wants people to avoid simplistic explanations for complex matters, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I love this show. Again, I would also like to add that the richest two people in America, Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, are both agnostic / atheists. It's depending on, they have a
Depending
lot
on the definition, yeah.
Yeah, they have. But the richest two people, Warren Buffett and Bill Gates, happen to be atheists or agnostic.
Yeah.
And
What are the poorest two
they are
people?
Huh? Yeah.
What are the
absolutely.
poorest
And
two
as a-
people? Do you know?
Yeah.
I'm not
As a
even sure
side
who the
note,
people
they
are.
Yeah.
As a side note, they're also the most contribution. What's the word for it?
Yeah, they do the most
they contribute more to
giving.
charities.
Yeah.
Charitable. Thank you. They're also the most charitable two people in America. Now, meanwhile, with that same statistic in mind, I don't know anyone who would deny this, but 99.1%, or let's just call it roughly 99% in prison, are considered religious or heavily religious.
Is that old study of prison populations? Yeah, there's been that study going on for a long time, and
Well, I know this not only because
there's a fair concern to be raised about that study, which is that there's a lot of benefits to be gained in prison by claiming that you're religious.
Yeah, no, there are specific programs, like you do religious service.
Right.
That's right, that you get time served.
So it may be that a large
happening.
percentage of the people listed as Christians in that study might in fact be closeted atheists.
and first of all, I'm not referring to just Christians.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was ultimately there was some truth to it, but I think we need a better study than that one.
Absolutely. Well, we could say this, that more than the average number of atheists are actually in prison. I know this not only because of the studies I've read, but I've also actually been, when I was a theist, I spent quite a bit of time in jail. I'm not going to say I've ever been in prison. And I can guarantee you from personal experience as well as studies that the majority of them are religious. And by the way, I'm not talking about Christians. There's a lot of Buddhists. There's a lot of, well, not so much Buddhists, but Catholics. I'm not saying one religion is in jail.
Yeah, multiple beliefs. Okay. Well,
All
we
right.
appreciate it, Brent. We really do.
Thanks for calling, and
I
welcome aboard the big atheist bandwagon.
Could I actually just make my last point? My 3 points were less happy, less healthy, and less wealthy is the result of religion. I wouldn't say that people in jail are happy. I wouldn't say that people in jail are wealthy. Or I also should say that Bill Gates and Warren Buffett are both very wealthy. The last point I want to make is less healthy. And if you look at a direct correlation between the health of entire countries, the most malaria-stricken, unhealthy countries in the world and denounce themselves as 95 to 99% religious. Malaria, for example, is very popular for God's followers. Now I'm talking about Christianity for a second.
God loves mosquitoes.
People that happen to follow Christianity have statistically most of them do not follow like atheism as a belief, they do have a religious following. And so my final question before I let you go on to the next caller is why does God, if there was a God, let's level with that. If there was a God, why are his followers mostly in jail? Well, I'm sorry, I said that wrong.
Okay, I'll give you the Christian answer to this one really quickly. He's attempting to get you, he's teaching you lessons. He's attempting to get you to understand what's wrong with your life and make the choices that you need to. Christians always have an answer for that sort of thing. So it's always...
And that's the argument that I used to hear, and I had my
the corollary to that, of course, would be that God recognizes that people who don't believe in him are already educated enough.
When I was a theist, I answered that question by saying, God is testing you. God is, he wants you to for example, malaria. He wants you to die so you can go to heaven and be joyous for the rest of eternity. Now, that was my answer as of a couple weeks ago. But now I realized, well, why doesn't God just get me hit by a bus or make a tree fall on me? Why should I suffer for 5 years of fever and backaches and muscle aches and constant diarrhea and why does he make me suffer as a Christian, in this specific example, for several years before dying and going to heaven? Of hunger,
Yeah, and Christians will always point to, like, the story of Job and things like that.
And ask yourself, who would concoct a religion that that tries to make people, tries to acclimate people to being poorer and more and less happy and less wealthy? I guess I duplicated that. You know what I mean? The less happy, less healthy. And what was the third thing you said?
Less wealthy.
Well, happy, healthy, and wealthy. Who would put together a religion where the whole point of it is to convince people that that's a good state of affairs?
Yeah.
Seems to me it'd be the people that wanted to hoard all the happiness, health, and wealth for themselves.
Yeah.
Which is why you have Benny Hinn flying around on a Gulfstream jet.
All right, so I appreciate your guys' time. I hope you guys do some independent research. Don't believe what I say. Feel free to Google anything that I said and kind of find out for yourself. But before I let you go, I used to be a theist. And just within the last couple weeks after being presented this information from somebody that was very close to me and doing the research for myself, I changed my opinion, and I still wouldn't call me atheist as much as an agnostic. I don't completely know. But before I let you go, my last question is, and this is an important one, as a theist, I'm going to ask this question.
Okay.
In your opinion, in both of your opinions, what do you think is the best argument for theism? And I know that might be a hard question to answer.
Do you want to take this first?
The one that I hear from apologists and defenders of religion is that religion, and so I guess you can put the theism umbrella over that as well, is this thing that, brings people happiness and pleasure and comfort in their lives, and we all live in this vale of tears of misery, and but as you just pointed out, the practical reality for a lot of people isn't that. And so what you end up with is this kind of, it keeps you in, it's like playing the lottery, right? It keeps you in this endless state of hope. You end up in maybe like the gambler's fallacy, where you just like, when Christians go to their pastors and says, oh, well, everything's just going wrong, miserable. It's like, well, you don't have enough faith, you aren't praying hard enough, so pray even harder than you're doing now. So the answer to crises of faith is always more faith. So the religion makes you happier, which is kind of what we've been discussing and refuting for this whole conversation, is what, in my opinion, theists that I've talked to think is the best argument for theism, but I don't see it, really.
Yeah, I've been amazed. Over the years, I've asked a lot of different Christians for them to tell me what is the single best argument for Christianity that you've got, and when they share it with me, and then I show them why it's nonsense, it never seems to faze them, which is amazing. I'm going to kind of not directly answer your question. I was asked once, if I wanted to convert people to Christianity, what strategy would I use? Not what argument would I use? And I think the strategy Christianity uses is pretty well engineered. You set up an impossible standard of behavior called Jesus, and then you tell people to be ashamed of the fact that they don't live up to that. And that's how you got them hooked. Then they feel like they're missing something, like they're not good enough, and they need special dispensation from your religious organization in order to qualify as human beings.
If I may intrude, I mean, that's sales 101. Create a problem and provide a solution.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's right. And
All right. We're going to let you go, Brett.
Yeah, we really got to move on, but we appreciate the convo.
I appreciate your time. I look forward to watching you guys in the future. Have a great day.
All right. You too. Bye-bye. We have Sarah in Cranbrook, British Columbia. Sarah, you there?
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Yes, loud and clear.
Hi, awesome. I'm so glad to be on. Unfortunately, I can't watch the Ustream because it hates me, but I can hear you guys okay.
It hates us all with a deep-seated hatred.
Anyways, my question that I had, I haven't seen it come up quite yet. I've been watching your show for quite a while, pretty much every episode I could find, and I've been wondering, what is your perspective on the difference between both theism and atheism as compared to Canada and the U.S.? And the reason that I asked is because, although I'm sure some people will get angry for me saying this, we are very culturally similar in many ways. Like we have the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and you have the Constitution, and yet I don't see the level of religious zealotry up here, even in clusters where you would assume it would happen, and yet down there, I mean, like my friends and I cross the border and we go to a restaurant in Montana's, and it's like, praise Jesus, oh God, it's all over the walls, and you're like, oh my God, can't I just have my steak? Mm-hmm. And I mean, and the area that I'm in personally, it's a town of like 24,000 people, but we have like 14 churches, and we're about an hour and a half away from Bountiful, which is analogous to Colorado City. And you see, all of these people, like fundamentalist Mormons walking around in their outfits, and there's no problem. You don't get this level of it getting pushed down your throat. And even with friends of mine that are, devout Catholics and Lutherans, I drove with my friend to his uncle's funeral, and we spent the entire time that way and back, like a 6-hour drive, arguing about whether or not God's moral because we were bored. And you just don't get any anger. And so I wondered, why do you think it is that despite us being so similar and so close, that there's this ginormous difference between the two?
I don't know.
Yeah. Sorry, you're expecting better.
We had a thing happen here in the United States politically where the Republican Party allied itself with the extreme right-wing fundamentalist Christianity as it's an entirely cynical move to get a lot of political support. And that seems to have been the start of the intrusion of religion into all aspects of our society. At least recently. And the United States has changed over time. I mean, there have been periods of more religiosity and less religiosity. I'm just talking about the latest upswing.
Yeah, I think that really started with the Cold War, especially. Where the supposed inherent atheism of the communist regime was, latched onto as, that's why they're bad. And so atheism just got equated with that's how the Soviet Union is, that's how the bad guys are, and we're not like that. And so there was that kind of approach. And I don't think Canada had, that sort of thing in its political history to
not really, though.
At
least not that I've seen.
And so essentially what happened was that Christianity and belief in God became in America equated with how much of a patriot you were, and so that's Canada, and so that's the difference, I think, perhaps between how things have since played out in America versus Canada.
I mean, it would make sense because I even started combing over through our Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms to see if there's some something in there that helps guide it, and it's so vague that I didn't even think that on a legal standing, I don't think we have anything better or worse. I just couldn't figure out where, even the patriotism, Canadians tend to be particularly, I don't know if I want to use the word apathetic or ambiguous, or I don't know, but it's just weird when my friends and I will look down there, even religious friends, and just not understand, like, what? Just calm the hell down, have a beer, just chill. I don't get it.
Yeah, even if you had found, really clear barriers to the intrusion of religion into government, that hasn't helped us here. We've got those same things in our Constitution and in our amendments and Bill of Rights and all that stuff. It ought to be enough, but it's not. Not in the face of a concerted effort to impose religion against people's will.
Yeah.
Well, if like that having been said, do you think that there's anything that, not to sound like a Canadian high horse over here, but do you think there's anything to be learned from our culture to help, kind of tame the religiosity, or do you think that you're just going to have to take a completely different standpoint because of you guys have had a different history and perspective?
Based on the thoughts that Martin and I have just brought up, I think it's too late. We can't go back in time. We can't go back in time and prevent the Cold War from having happened, and we can't go back in time and prevent the Reagan from cozying up to the religious right. And so it's the cat's already out of the bag. I think we're just going to have to keep pushing culturally to put things back to rights.
Yeah, I can understand that. Well, thank you so much for answering my question. I'll let you guys get on to other callers. And I'd just like to give a shout out to all the atheists in America. Just so you know, it's not always like that. There are places very close by where you can just talk to people and chill. And any people who are kind of sitting on the fence religiously, from my experience, having grown up as a theist for 22 years, life is made more beautiful for its brevity. And just because it won't go on forever doesn't mean that there's not an incredible richness to be gained in every second of life. So please don't let that fear of oblivion hold you back from enjoying things.
That's very well said, Sarah.
Yep. Thanks for the call, Sarah.
Take care.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
I'm embarrassed to say I haven't been to Canada since I was in my early teens on a family vacation and way too young to be able to appreciate the difference religiously. But also, as a transhumanist, I have to say, no, I'm not buying the whole life is more beautiful because it's short thing. I think life is an engineering problem. We ought to fix it. Mortality is an engineering problem.
Before we go on, just after this, we meet for noms at Threadgills. So we have a lovely studio audience with us, so you guys are free to join us, and we do that every time.
Let's try line 4, Akeem in Pennsylvania, Florida. Pensacola, Florida.
Yeah, Pensacola. How you doing?
We're good.
Great. How are you, Akeem?
I'm doing okay. Thank you for taking my call. I'm a first-time caller. I just have a question about dogma and Damer's intellectual code of conduct. Have y'all heard of that?
No.
So do you mind if I read you a paragraph from his book? It's relatively short.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Damer, he is a professor of philosophy in some college in Virginia, and he wrote this book called Attacking Faulty Reasoning. It's a book that discusses 60 of the most common fallacies. But before he gets into that, he discusses conduct that people should adhere to if they're engaged in conversation. He says that when one who wishes to construct the strongest possible arguments for his or her views and to do one's part in resolving conflicts concerning issues that matter, they should make each of the following principles a part of his or her intellectual style. And some of those principles are like the fallibility principle, where everybody should understand that they could be wrong, and then the truth-seeking principle, where you should be trying to seek the truth instead of win the argument, and so on and so forth. I just wanted to know if that could be considered dogmatic.
I would say the difference between dogma and just good advice is dogma is something that is enforced, and you're following it because of the force exerted on you from somebody making you do it. And good advice is just something you can look at and say, why, yes, that makes sense. I'll choose to do that thing.
Yeah. And
okay, but I can just imagine.
And since I've never heard of this guy, I absolutely don't feel like I'm being pressured to do what he suggests because of force.
Oh, okay. Yes, I can imagine certain Christians saying, "Why should I follow this guy when he's trying to make me to do something when, atheists accuse Christians of doing the same thing. It's just, I just wanted to make sure that there was a difference between the two.
Yeah, and if the suggestions that he makes in that passage, you can easily check for yourself whether they're right or wrong simply by putting them into practice.
Yeah.
When he is it better? Do you conduct your arguments and your discussions in a more effective way by being someone who is willing to accept the likelihood that you could be mistaken, or if you stick to your guns and right or wrong, are not open to other ideas in that way? I mean, do you come across better arguing if you're like that?
Hey, control room, we're not seeing camera 3 come up at all when Martin talks. Can we have camera 2 when Martin's talking? There we go. There he is.
Okay. So that's how you can again distinguish between dogma and good advice, because as Jeff said, dogma is what it is simply it's a list of rules that's enforced by authority, and you can have that situation even when the rules don't make good sense. You think of them and you go, well, but that I don't understand why. Yeah, but do it anyway because I say. That's the difference between dogma and something that's good advice. Good advice is just something that you can think about, you can put it into practice, and you can see that it works.
Right.
On your own.
If you're obeying somebody's instructions because you've thought about them, and now we're not seeing me. If you obey somebody's instructions because you've thought about them and they make sense to you, you're not being dogmatic. If you do it because that is the command and you're obeying orders, then you're being dogmatic. Okay?
Oh yeah, just a little bit more. I'm trying to become a teacher, and I'm an atheist too. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to appear dogmatic to my students. I'm trying to teach English lit, and I want to use this code so that way the students can engage in effective conversations. But again, some students could say that I'm being dogmatic by forcing them to, follow these rules.
You're going to force them to follow the rules?
Well, not force them, but but we're going to talk about it in class, and whenever we discuss certain things, if I notice a student isn't following one of the principles, I'm going to call them out on it.
Uh-huh.
Well, in that case, I've never been a teacher or an instructor like that, but I would think that if you were confronted by a student who thought that you were, being dogmatic to him and simply attempting to force him to adopt ideas that he thinks are wrong just by virtue of your authority as the teacher, then you should say, all right, let's talk about it then. Let me hear your opinions and we'll have a one-on-one discussion. And be kind of Socratic with him, right? Ask him questions, feed him back, and then hopefully just by virtue of your example, he'll see, oh, okay, Akeem isn't trying to do that to me. He really wants me to think for myself. And so you can never control how people are going to react to what you say, but I think that it's all in how you present yourself. I think you can rely on them interpreting you the way you want to be interpreted. So good luck with that. And
then again, a teacher-student relationship is by definition, the teacher has authority over the student, and I don't think you can necessarily avoid all appearances of imposing your will on the students, and I don't think you necessarily have to consider that a problem. You do have a job. You have a job to accomplish, and you need to have some authority in order to do that.
And the students understand that. The students already understand that if they're in your class and you're the instructor, well, obviously, you're the guy who has the expertise in whatever the subject is. So they're already going to understand that. But at the same time, I think, the good classroom environments, you probably remember from your own school experience, those are the ones where, the instructors and the teacher and the students have a lot of back and forth. Those were my most enjoyable classes in school. And so, good luck with your career in that and everything. So.
Thank you for that, and thank you for your time. Y'all do good work, and I'll just keep tuning in.
All right. Well, thank you, Akeem.
Yes, sir.
Yep. Thanks for calling.
All right.
It's the second time I think I've cut them off in the middle of saying goodbye. I'm sorry. I'm a little fast on the trigger. And, let's go to Richard here in Austin, Texas. Richard, are you there?
Yes. How you doing?
Great. How are you?
Martin and Jeff, it's been enjoyable to see both of you for about 8 years already.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And, I see you on and off, not all the time, and I really enjoy the show.
Thanks.
I'm a Christian, and I believe in a creator. I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. And the greatest evidence, I guess, that I can present to both of you is just look at yourself in the mirror. You know that.
Right.
Aside from
Which one of us?
all the animals in the earth, you know.
Wait a minute. Which of us should look in the mirror?
Both of you.
Yeah.
Which of us should look in the mirror?
Both of you, you know. Just,
Both of us. You're saying this is evidence of God?
a creator.
Of a creator? Well, which of us is the creator then that we're going to see when we look in the mirror?
No.
I'm not following you.
The product.
Okay. No, not buying it.
Yeah, I know what you're. Let me kind of preface my answer here, because I know what you're trying to say, and in a sense, there's a sense in which I think you're right, but it's not going to be in the sense that you intended. It has always been my opinion that what believers call God is simply an idealized projection of self upon the world and upon the universe. We live in this big, vast, well, it's not infinite, but it goes on for bajillions of light years. It's this huge, empty universe. It's full of stars and quasars and vacuum, and it's cold and it's lonely, and we don't know if we're the only living things in it or not. And that can be rather, existentially frightening to a lot of people. The idea that we're just existing on this tiny little speck of dust for a short period of time, and then we're gone, and we won't be missed, and that's it. And I think that in order to make themselves feel less alone, less abandoned and adrift in this big vacuum of space, people create gods. It's a projection of the human image, their own image, onto the universe. And then you have a God who is looking down upon you. He is watching over you, keeping you safe and protected, and you feel loved. And so when you talk about look at yourself in the mirror and you'll see God, I agree that that's what Christians are doing, but I don't think it's just not in the way you say.
You'll see evidence.
Excuse me, I don't mean it that way. I mean it like the end product. Like there's so many animals on this earth, and not a single one can fabricate, or create, we're talking to each other through a television.
Well, there used to be Neanderthals, and the evidence is that we wiped most of them out and interbred with the last few.
Well,
so, it's happened more than once, dude.
It's there's different arguments. It's an argument out there, and it's a theory.
Yeah, no, it's not even that. I think it's a desire. It's a belief. It's the way people want to see things, and it's just a way of explaining the universe and in human terms.
In regards to the Neanderthals, there's different stories about that, and you got yours and I got mine. And
no, dude, excuse me. The story that is relevant concerning Neanderthals is the story that has been put together by paleontologists through careful examination of the actual physical evidence. And any other story is just made up. Now, theirs is subject to a certain amount of interpretation, but every other story is just made up.
Well, because we're humans, we can disagree with each other in regards to that.
We can, but really the story to pay attention to is the one that comes from the mouths of the people who are actually looking at the facts.
Well, the facts, it's like you can say one thing and somebody else, the facts could be different.
Dude, look, these are people, we're talking about people who have actually gone around the world, combed over the actual physical evidence and very carefully analyzed it. Anything else you've got to tell some different story about the Neanderthals is bullshit compared to that.
Yeah.
Yes, I understand. It's nice to think that we can just have, everybody's opinion is equally valid, but it's not true. It is not true that all opinions are equally valid. There are some people who are good, who are like well-versed in certain subjects, and they know more about it than we do. When I have a plumbing problem in my house, I call a plumber. I don't say, well, I'm not a plumber, but my story about how to fix my sink is just as good as his. That's ridiculous.
I just don't believe that we evolved from a monkey. Why hasn't the monkey...
That's fine. That's fine. You don't have to. Nobody is forcing you to believe anything you don't want to believe.
Exactly.
But when it comes to questions of, whose version of reality is the one to pay attention to, it's the one that's based on a careful analysis of the actual available evidence, and not any of the other ones.
Yeah,
if you're,
there's different evidence to different
no, there
situations.
isn't. No, there isn't.
I believe so.
Well, again, you can
All right,
believe as
that's
many.
not what it's about, dude.
You can believe as many incorrect things
Can
as
we
you
have
like.
camera
And what
one
we're
on,
trying to explain
camera 3 on Martin, please?
is that belief and opinion are not the same things, and this is this sort of conflation of the two ideas.
Yeah,
is
we
what
got
creates
different
problems
opinions and
intellectually
different.
in our culture. Yeah, yes, there are people who have different stories about how certain events play out, and as Jeff's trying to explain to you, the one that is actually backed up by the available evidence is the one at the end of the day that you have to say that's factual until better evidence comes along. You can believe what you like, but beliefs aren't facts. They are unequal things. They're not the same concept. They're not arrived at by the same cognitive tools. There are non-trivial differences between the two.
Well,
my shirt is red. You can believe all the livelong day, even if you're colorblind, that it is bright pink with orange polka dots. You can believe that all the livelong day, but it's a red shirt.
I believe there were Neanderthals, and the different stories about it. I can present another fact in regards to it, and it differs from you or whoever the people that you.
All we're trying to explain to you is that you may decide upon whatever explanation of life and the universe you like, but you have that right to have that opinion and have that belief.
Yes,
but if
that.
you understand, we're simply trying to get you to understand that beliefs are not equal to facts, and you could be wrong. And as long as you're willing to understand that your beliefs, whatever degree of satisfaction and comfort they make you feel, aren't the same thing as facts. Because I've met theists like that.
My facts could differ from yours, and
No, your facts.
You are entitled to your
what I
beliefs.
have.
You are entitled to your own beliefs. You are not entitled to your own facts.
Yeah.
The facts are what they are.
Based on interpretation, and like.
Dude.
No.
In regards to.
Look, okay, fine, but the only interpretation that's valid is the one that's done by professionals.
How far back were the Neanderthals?
No. I think we're done here. Look, and I'm going to go a little bit farther than Martin just did. While it is true that you have a right to your own beliefs, at the point when you start trying to convince other people, like you're doing right now, you're trying to convince me and Martin that we should take your beliefs seriously, right? When you do not have the evidence on your side.
Well,
you may have
I'm
the
not
right.
about
You have the
evidence,
right
I'm
to
talking
free.
about facts.
I'm talking here.
I
am
appreciate
talking
you,
here. Goodbye, Richard.
Jeff.
Let's go to John in Loganville, Florida. John,
John, are you
John, are you there?
John on line 4.
John and oh, excuse me. John, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi.
Wrong
Sorry about that. I hit the wrong button.
Hey, no problem. And it's actually Georgia, but it's cool.
Oh, yeah,
What did
Loganville,
I
Georgia.
say?
Yeah.
Georgia.
Yeah, all right.
No, it's cool. I am a religious person, and something that I get occasionally is I will have an atheist come up to me and, not necessarily just off of the street, obviously, but we'll be in a discussion, and he will look at me and he will say, God is not real. Now, at that point, he's claiming God is not real. He's stating it as a fact. He's stating it as this is what it is. And my response to that has always been, well, you can't prove that. And he says, I don't have to. The burden of proof falls on you. And while I do understand that if I'm saying God is real, then the burden of proof does fall on me. However, if he is claiming that he is not, doesn't the burden of proof fall on the atheist to prove that he is not? And now I understand you'll have scientific facts and scientific theories and everything that will suggest that he is not, but you can't disprove.
Yeah, I think technically you may be correct. Let me ask you, though, when these atheists say God does not exist, has a clear, solid definition of the God being discussed? Is that on the table? Do you know exactly what it is you guys are talking about? Because there are some definitions of God by which one can say that doesn't exist.
Typically, if we're ever having that discussion, I am a Baptist, so it's always been a Christian God.
No, what I mean is is this one of the three omni-gods, the omnipotent, omniscient, omnibenevolent gods?
Yes.
Yeah, that doesn't exist.
I mean,
there's a thing called the problem of evil, and it's just a completely insurmountable logical refutation of any God defined as having those three characteristics.
And not only that, but
you can try to weasel out of it by denying that that there's such a thing as bad stuff. But that's just ridiculous.
Yeah, and it's not even, and you don't even really have to reach for the problem of evil to show that that's an impossible God concept. You simply have to look at the fact that the attributes of omniscience and omnipotence contradict one another, and not only that, but omnipotence contradicts itself. And anything that contains an internal contradiction cannot be true and cannot exist. So an omnipotent being cannot exist.
Now, these atheists, of course, should then not turn around and say, I don't have to disprove that God, because in fact they can, and they may as well.
Right. Okay, I get that. And that kind of answers my question. But when it comes down to you talking about a being that can, rewrite reality to his will if he wants to, kind of like a computer programmer programming code, it doesn't seem like there's any definitive way you can say, well, he made it that way. I mean, when it comes down to faith, you can't really disprove faith.
Well, faith?
I'm sorry. I did put that the wrong way. I mean, if you have faith in something, you don't have to have proof for it to be
faith
true.
is the excuse people give themselves to believe stuff when they don't have proof or even, reasonably compelling evidence. That's what faith is. Faith is a big, fat excuse to go ahead and believe a thing when you have no good reason to do so.
Yeah. But getting back to your original question, if someone wants to present the anti-theist position to you, which is that nothing that could possibly be called a God exists, then they're making a positive claim and they would have a burden of proof to bear there. But I think in most conversations, certainly that I've been engaged in and that I've also heard second and third hand from other, we get a ton of emails from atheists who say, I'm in this Facebook argument with a Christian right now, and then they, thankfully, thank you, cut and paste like 500 words, 2,000 words of it, and sometimes we skim these and we look at some of the mistakes that are being made on either side, and in most of these conversations, all you need to realize is that atheism, in terms of what the God question is putting forth, is what's called the null hypothesis, right? Which is, in the person making the positive claim bears the burden of proof, and if that is not met, then the skeptic or the unbeliever can, freely refrain from belief in the claim without any arguments or explication of their own.
That which is proposed without proof can be dismissed without proof. Is another way of saying that.
Yeah.
And a second ago, were you attempting to offer a refutation of the problem from evil when that stuff you were saying about, well, he created everything and controls reality? Was that meant as a refutation of the problem of evil?
A refutation of the problem of evil? Yeah. I'm going to be honest, and I'm not really 100% sure everything about the problem of evil. This is actually the first time I've heard of that argument.
Wow, I'm not surprised. Look it up. Either you're going to have to lie to yourself, or you're going to have to admit that your God can't have the three omnis, or else he doesn't exist.
And there has been for a couple thousand years a kind of argument called theodicy. It's very highly motivated. Theodicy is, and it specifically refers to the apologetics arguments that are constructed to attempt to refute the problem of evil. It is something that Christian apologists and theologians recognize as a real problem, but I've never heard one deal with it successfully. So,
okay.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, John.
Call us back whenever.
Let's try to do this right now. Going on to let's just go in order. Blake from Chicago.
Oh, hello.
Hi, Blake.
Yeah. Hey, how's it going? I actually feel like I got the right guys on. Jeff, you said you're a transhumanist?
I am.
All right, because several times Jeff and I believe it was Tracy, people were calling in asking about if the fear of death really affected an atheist. And they seem to say, well, no, and, you know, it makes the sundae sweeter to know that there's a limited amount. And I was just wondering if you thought, no, that the actual fear of death, you know, the fear of life coming to an end, isn't that really the most important motivation for a human being evolutionarily? And wouldn't that really propel people to find, no matter how unlikely it is, some sort of way to continue their life, either spiritually or through reincarnation or through some other means? And that may be... Sure.
I think you'll find that the most important motivation for human beings evolutionarily is sex. Because it's not about us as individuals evolutionarily, right? It's about the passing on the genes. Now, on the subject of death, I'm not a transhumanist because I'm afraid of death. I'm a transhumanist because I think death sucks. Because I expect to continue to have things I want to accomplish. And that has nothing to do with fear, right? I mean, I feel the same way about death as I feel about running out of charge on my cell phone. It's like, crap!
Yeah, I was in the middle of that conversation, yeah.
Right.
You know, it's certainly any self-aware organism is, you know, it's our natural instinct to attempt to avoid death, right? I mean, a dog will run out of a burning house. You know, so I don't think any of us embrace the idea. We recognize that, you know, until the magic life extension, you know, treatment comes along, or I should say, technologically advanced life extension treatment comes along. You're correct. We use magic in it because it's a fun word. Yeah. But Gandalf was just waving his wand and making us all. The point is, the point is, you know, until and in fact, science has done a lot over the last century in terms of that. You know, we've extended life expectancy from, you know, in the 40s to you know, the upper 70s. You know, if you are fortunate enough, privileged enough to live in a slightly more technologically advanced, you know, country and culture. So that's been going on. But eventually, you know, we're all gonna kind of wear out and end, right? I mean, even the universe is going to do that. The heat death will happen in however many trillions of years. So you accept the ultimate inevitability of the whole thing, but you don't, you know, it's rather pointless to just sort of dwell on it in this kind of existential despair, right? I mean, if you're doing that, then you've probably got some clinical depression issue going on, and it's not even really a matter of, you know, your belief or your philosophy at that point. So, yeah, you know, I try to make the best of every day and enjoy every day, and you know, as people say, time that you enjoy spending doing whatever it is not going to be time wasted. So, you know, that's my approach to that whole question.
No, I agree with that. I'm just saying, do you think a serious issue with people converting to atheism, or it's not really a conversion, but changing their mind, is they might say...
You mean letting go of religion because religion promises heaven and...
I do think that the fear of death is used as a tool by religion to manipulate people into converting, yes.
You know, and I'm just saying it seems like atheists need some sort of way to give a positive message to sort of reassure people as they change, because I could just see a person saying, in my head, I know Darwin's right. You know, in my head, I can think, you know, it doesn't really make any sense.
Okay, I'm going to answer this one really quickly in the hopes that maybe we can get one more caller in before the end of the show. Get on the internet and Google from Richard Dawkins his "You and I are going to die and that makes us the lucky ones" speech. It's a very brief passage that he has. I find it's a very inspirational quote. It might not work like a magic bullet on someone who is religiously obsessed with the inevitability of death and the desire to go to heaven and all that, but it gives a good secular, godless perspective on, you know, the reality of death and how to appreciate life in the face of that. I think that's something that an atheist has offered. Go look that up online.
Thanks for your call, Blake.
All right, rock on.
So long. I did it again. I'm so sorry for cutting you off. And let's try George here in Austin. George.
Howdy, how are you?
We are well. It's got to be real quick, George. We're in the last couple minutes.
Okay, very briefly then. I'm neither deist nor theist. The God spot in my its thinking is held by the universe as a whole, pantheism.
Uh-huh.
What say you about that? And I'll just listen to your comments off the air. Maybe you can even take another call.
All right. Thank you, George.
Pantheism. You can call anything a god. The ancient Romans, the Roman Senate called Julius Caesar a god. I'm having trouble dropping that call.
Well, we get. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, he's still there.
Okay.
You can call anything a god. We don't see the point. Anything else to say about that?
Yeah, again, I think it's probably related to that desire I talked about earlier to put a human face on the universe to make it a little bit less existentially terrifying. But I don't really see the utility in that. I mean, if what you're talking about as pantheism is, just calling the universe a god or some sort of a divine spiritual entity that serves that fine. I don't see a purpose in it. I don't see that I would find it useful or necessary. I don't need it. And so, yeah, I agree with you, Jeff.
We got 1 minute. Should we try one last thing?
Well, why don't...
What? You want to say something in the last minute?
Well, I just want to say, yeah, let's thank our crew because they kind of had a tough day. We were missing
the crew pulled together in an extraordinarily awesome way to get this show to actually happen.
So any technical glitches that have happened today, we've got 2 of our main people missing, and so they're trying to double up on jobs. So any technical glitches that happened today, we love you, crew. That's just reality. But the open house today, we're getting our studio a little bit more in shape.
Yes, I was at the ACA building today. It's small, but very, very cool.
Because a lot of people have asked, are we gonna start doing our own shows out of there? And if so, are we gonna go back to more than an hour?
I do not know what the precise plans are for that, but we are gearing up to be able to do that.
And it would be nice, because we have a lot of people ask us things like that. Are you gonna be back to 90 minutes or longer? Are you gonna be able to take Skype calls, people who can't call us normally? And so we're aware of all these things, and we hope we can at some point. That would be awesome.
Thanks, everybody, for watching. I'm told we got 5 seconds, so take care. Thanks for watching the show. We'll see you later.
Good to do the show again with you, too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You too, man. It's been awesome.
It has been.
I don't know what.
Thanks to our audience. Great audience.
Folks,
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So
there we go. Presumably, there's music playing.
If not, everybody knows it.
Don't say anything embarrassing.
Open your eyes.
Bye, everybody. Don't take any wooden saviors.